And you can pay to go into a museum and look at their paintings and get a spot and have your easel and copy the masters, or be surrounded by amazing art, and that's supposed to inspire you to make your own art. And this one fellow had gone into the museum. He was painting, he was copying one of the big paintings there, and he noticed there was somebody else who had a spot near him in that hall. And all day, the guy didn't paint anything. He just stood there and looked at his canvas and
waited for inspiration.
And eventually,
for the moment to hit.
the first guy who was telling the story, he realized what he was doing. He was waiting for the inspiration to strike, and he kept disappearing. And he was like, well, where is he going? Like, what is he doing? He hasn't painted anything, and he keeps disappearing. And eventually, he realized what was happening was the guy had. His hair was slicked back and it was drying out, and he would run to the bathroom and slick his hair back, get it wet, so that he was just perfectly ready for the moment, right? I remember going to an art museum in Calgary, and they had this huge canvas, and it was called White on White, and it had one stroke of white paint on it. That's not meaningful, right? That's not meaningful art. That's not really improving people's lives in a significant way. In order for there to be something worth sharing, you have to have something worth sharing with the world.
So one, it's about like what you consume makes a huge difference in the kind of art that you can create. And so being very, very careful, like what you consume matters a lot. But the other part of that is what you surround yourself with is going to change the kind of value of art. And then on a third level of that is the kind of people you surround yourself with is also going to affect how much you're pushed, and what kind of art you create ultimately, right?
Yeah. So there was 3 things there. What were they again? There was
what you consume, what you surround yourself with, and the people you're around, right?
Right. Yeah. Because what's inside is what comes out, right? Jesus has that, I don't know, the parable or that saying, right? From the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks, right? And that is true. What you can't make something that you don't already possess, right? So what you put in to yourself, what you're consuming, really, really matters, right? We want to have meaningful things to say. We first have to have meaningful thoughts in our minds and hearts before we can put anything meaningful out.
Well, and I think one of the things I start to learn too is like being quicker in your consumption of things, like to recognize if something isn't worth your time, right? That just because you start a book doesn't mean you need to finish a book. Just because you started a movie doesn't mean you need to finish a movie, right? And even then, you don't have to read it through all the way through from start to end. You can go back and forth and look at table of contents, look at chapter titles, go back and forth through it, skim it, start to work through it.
So it's not just kind of going in one ear and out the other. You're actually digesting it and thinking about it critically. Is this true? Is it helpful? How does this apply to other things?
If you want to create meaningful art, you got to make sure that what you put into yourself is quality as well, so that you can outflow quality from there, right?
We've been told that originality is what makes things meaningful, but I disagree with that. What makes things meaningful is when you are taking things that are meaningful and sharing them. And we had a book recently called Steal Like an Artist, and the concept of that book is that we essentially are made up. You know, any entrepreneur is going to tell you this too. You're rich dad, poor dad is the first place I heard it, right? You're like the 6 or 10 people you spend the most time with. You're an average of those. So make sure you're spending time with people that are lifting you up, not pulling you down. Same thing goes with art. You are a combination of all the art you're absorbing. You're not original. And being original often just ends up in a mess that is kind of selfish. It's about me. It doesn't really help anybody else. Whereas when we're looking around for the valuable, good ideas, and then we're putting those together, and then we can share those with people, that's where the meaning comes from, right? That's where the meaning comes from.
So that kind of leads into we're talking about being careful what you consume, but then also the sense that art isn't really about you. And in some ways we know that because we want to change the world with our art. But at the same time, it's really easy to get stuck on almost thinking it is about you and what you like. And so trying to shift your perspective to really go, what do the people that you're creating the art for want? What do they desire? What do they need? How can you understand more how to create more valuable art for your ideal audience as opposed to just wholly what you want to create, right? If you want your art to make a difference, it has to change people's lives. And the only way it's going to do that is if you create the art for them, not for you.
It's a service, right? It's a service. There is something incredibly valuable about art, and it's kind of intangible, but it's really, really important, and it's significant to people's lives. Like, it does make people's lives better if it's good art, and if it's actually serving them instead of about the ego of the artist. Not just, this is me and my highly inspired, I'm so smart and talented and look at me. When it's serving, that's where the meaning comes in. And that's the stuff that transcends time. That's the stuff that has staying power and lasts and makes, and it can change people's lives, that kind of art.
Yeah. And then just making sure you remember, what does the people that you're creating it for, what do they actually want? What transformations do they want in their life that your art will help them accomplish?
Yeah.
Right? Because art ultimately should be making transformations in people's lives. If it's going to change them and it's going to change the world, it needs to make transformations. So what transformation does your audience want in their life?
And what do they need?
What do they need?
Okay, so we've been sitting here for probably 10 minutes trying to figure out how to end this video. We haven't figured this out yet. If there's things that you guys would like us to talk about in a video like this, leave a comment down below.
We appreciate you guys as you're joining us on this journey, as we are learning and discovering, and that's what we really kind of want to make this channel, is this channel, as we are discovering, we are trying things, we are failing, we are learning. Hopefully we're succeeding.
From time to time.
And we're glad you're with us on that journey.